Welcome back to part 2. In this video we get everything wrapped up and get it ready to be put in the truck. Alright, I've got the pump installed, bolted down, torqued to spec and everything, and checked the end play, and we were right at 15 thousandths, which is, I think the clearance range was like 15 to 35 thousandths. So squeaked it in there, but should be good. And then when I had this flipped over, one time I kind of carelessly flipped it over and wasn't thinking about this. You can kind of see where it dented the metal a little bit, but it got caught like this and it rested the weight of the transmission on it and it bent it. So I removed it and bent it back straight. So now all that's left is everything on this side, the valve body, servos, etc. So we are on the final stretch here, and then it should be ready to put back in the truck. My pile of used / discarded parts is almost bigger than what's left. Got the parking pawl stuff assembled. You can see kind of how it works. If you look down in there, let's see, turn my laser on. So if you look down where my laser is, you can see the lugs. And as I turn the output shaft, you see those lugs turning back there. And then this is attached to this. So when you put it in park, pushes that kind of wedge in there, and it wedges that lever. That lever has a stud on it. And then once you put it in park and it rolls back, it snaps in place and locks the output shaft. It's been another week. Got a new separator plate. The old one, you can kind of tell we've got a really rough 1 to 2 check ball wear on this hole. More than I wanted to repair. So went ahead and got the Transgo separator plate. And then on the 1-2 accumulator piston, the original is plastic, and they say to swap it out for the aluminum. So I got an aluminum one, because apparently these crack or wear. So that should be it. And then the next thing is just to put those together, and then next will be the valve body. Got the 1-2 accumulator put on, the separator plate and the gaskets, stiffener plate. So those are in place. However, I was taking apart the valve body, and this being the first time I've ever done this rebuild, here is the 3-4 accumulator piston. It's made of plastic. They say to replace this while you're at it, because this can crack and break. So I was going to just throw this back in there and go ahead and wing it, because you can replace this while the truck's in the transmission, or the transmission's in the truck. But as I was apparently the TCC bore, torque converter clutch bore, wears out really quick, and you pretty much have to bore this out a little bit, or ream it, and then replace it, the parts. I didn't want to have to do all that, but I've come all this way, I might as well finish it out. So the tool to ream it is like $100, and then the parts themselves are like $40-50. So yeah, we'll get those on order and see you guys next time. All right, we're back at it again today. We've got the new parts, Here's the Sonax TCC valve. And then I've got this reamer, a new forward accumulator piston, and then I've got new shift solenoids. The bad ones weren't necessarily bad, or the old ones weren't necessarily bad, but might as well replace them while I'm here. So we need to remount this bore and install the new replacement see all the metal shavings. So I've got this bore reamed out. Next thing is to clean it all up and start putting it back together. Now the valve body is all clean after reaming, and then I installed the new TCC sleeve and valve assembly. So now we can move on to the rebuild, replacing the forward accumulator piston in place of this plastic one, because apparently these crack and break, and since this unit has 250 something thousand miles on it, I figured we'll go ahead and switch to the aluminum. So we'll get it put together. Alright, we are ready to install the valve body onto the transmission. We've got new shift solenoids, cleaned up the pressure solenoid. Everything's been cleaned, new parts, new pressure switch. Now I've got to make two guide pins to screw into the case so I can lower it down and line it up perfectly. I've got both guide pins in, just some M6x1 by 100 millimeter threaded rod, so when I set the valve body on, everything will line up like it should. Got our check balls in their respective places. Getting a little closer, valve body's on, bolted down, torqued, detent spring, just installed the TCC solenoid, and about to install the PWM solenoid, and yeah, making progress. The bench is getting emptier. Alright, everything's pretty much on it. All that's left is the pan. All the internals are in, filters in, harness is all hooked up. So next is our gasket, and put on the pan, which I cleaned. And then We'll be ready to put on the shift mechanism here, and then the servo, and that'll be it. Well, we are done. Everything is put back. It's taken me like a month and a half. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look and see when I started. And then over here is all the parts that did not go back in it because they were either replaced or bad. And then here is the original reason this transmission failed. This piston, I forget which one this is, cracked, rendered it ineffective. So then over here, all the tools and everything I used for the whole process. Here's my parts box, basically empty except for a couple of seals I didn't use. The tail housing seal, which I also didn't use because it's a four-wheel drive unit. All those boxes are empty. So we were ready to put this back in the truck. Alright, well, we got the truck in the shop. Gonna jack it up, take the tires off. We don't have a whole lot of room to work with here, so gonna get the tires off so I can get in there a lot easier. I also need to jack it up anyway because the transmission won't slide underneath there at the regular height. So we'll do that, and then I need to mount transfer case to the transmission and then put the torque converter on and get everything up in there with the jacks. All right, and then we're supposed to pre-fill the torque converter. This is a new one, a rebuilt one I got. So we're gonna pre-fill it as much as we can. All right, so we gotta flush the transmission cooler, which is these two lines here. This is the pressure side, and this is the return side. I've got the oil extraction pump that I'm using hooked up. I'm gonna go in reverse to flush it. So I'm gonna come in the return, flush it, come out the pressure side. Got it coming down in this hose. Got it shoved through a socket to weight it down into this bucket. And then this side I'm gonna hook up a hose to, and I'm gonna put it in a bottle of transmission fluid. And so I'll flush new transmission fluid through that whole cooler and everything. So let's do it. As you can see, I pumped out from this other bottle the red up into the return side, and it was pumping out disgusting black transmission fluid. So we're gonna run this other bottle through, and this is actually my last bottle, so I hope this is enough. If not, I'll have to get some more and keep flushing it till it looks clean enough. Well, I wasn't able to get it on video, but you can kind of see there's a red tint in this hose. I was flushing it black, started to turn red, and then by the time I finished the bottle, it was the regular red color like this. So I'm gonna consider that a success, and we'll get ready to put the transmission up in here now. Got the transmission on the dolly. I'm gonna go ahead and shove it up in there, but right before I do that, I'm gonna put the torque converter in while it's out from underneath. I'm gonna go ahead and wait from doing the transfer case. If I had two people, another set of hands to help me, I would probably go ahead and bolt it on. That way, I can put it all in as one unit, but this is gonna be too heavy for just myself, so, and I don't have a fancy transmission jack. So, I'm just gonna do it this way. It's on the jack. Now, I got it up there. I got some bolts in, and I started to pull it towards the block, but the torque converter was hitting the flex plate too early. There was still about a 1/2 inch gap between the block here. So I, my only guess was I hadn't seated the torque converter all the way. So I dropped it, pulled it back out, dropped it down, and sure enough, it dropped back a little bit. So we'll put it back up in there and bolt it in. All right, the transmission is up there. Installed, everything's tightened down. Bell housing bolts are all tightened down. Got the fill tube dipstick in. Got the hydraulic lines installed with new seals. Flex plate bolts have been tightened and torqued to spec. And now I'm gonna put the starter in, and then I'll put the transfer case on. There was a wasp nest right here. I didn't even know it until Ross came out and told me. So I just sprayed them all. Super active. That is crazy. Managed to kill all of them without any of them leaving. Back at it today. I got the transfer case in and bolted up. All that's left is to hook up all my wiring. And then technically the exhaust needs to go on, but I'm not sure if I'll do that right away. And I also forgot to get bearings. Alright, we got the drive shaft in, and the exhaust is in. I'm gonna leave the front drive shaft out for now, because I need a new U-joint, and I don't really need four-wheel drive at the moment. So, all the wiring's hooked up. And then now all that's left is, we've got the tires back on, and then we put, I already put 2 quarts of transmission fluid in the torque converter, and the manual says it takes 11 quarts for an overhaul. So I put 9 more in the fill tube, and I've got a charger that's been sitting on the battery for like 2 days now, so it should be good and charged. My only concern is this truck's been sitting for like 2 years practically. The last time it ran was December of 2023, and it's currently September of 2024. So it's been like, what, 10 months, 9 months since this thing ran. So I'm not sure that the fuel is going to be any good, but we'll see. If it does end up being bad, I'm hoping that, you know, the tank's not just slap full. Maybe I can throw some good fuel in there and dilute it down. So we'll get the key, see if it'll crank up, and go for a quick test drive. So fuel gauge says it's completely empty, and I actually don't remember if the gauge even works on this truck. I don't think it does. So that might, that's probably inaccurate. But I just realized before I even try to drive it, I need to put the shift cable back in place. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to shift. All right, let's go ahead and see if it'll crank. Oh, fuel gauge is working now. It says a little over half, like 5/8. It's got a nasty lifter tick. But it's running. Let's see if it, I'm having to give it gas to keep it running. Let's see if it can hold on its own. Nope. Let it warm up. Get all the fluids going. It actually runs better than I thought it was going to. It's running on its own now. We'll see if it can hold it. It's kind of struggling. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's running pretty good now, holding at 500 RPMs. So now, I guess I'm gonna shift through the gears just to get fluid moving. I'll go to neutral. Then back to park. Hopefully this thing works. Hey, look at that. It went into reverse. Let's see if it goes into drive. Oh yeah. That's got some really good bite. Go to third. Second, first, I can feel it. Got decent oil pressure. The engine doesn't really like this. Back to neutral, reverse. And park. And then one other thing I remembered, it's still in 4 low. I need to get it out of 4-wheel drive. I don't have the front drive shaft hooked up, but I still need to get it out of 4-wheel drive. Let's see if it'll even come out. I don't know if the truck needs to be in neutral or what. Yeah, put it in neutral. See if it goes to 4 high. Oh, I heard it. There we go. Alright, I'm out of 4-wheel drive. My U-joints need some work, but it's going into every gear. Guess we'll just keep cycling through, and then I'm gonna put it back in park. Check the fluids. Well, here it is, moving under its own power, finally. It's been quite a while. And have reverse, which was the original problem, no reverse. Went into first gear, about to take it on the first test drive. We'll see. While I was doing the initial startup, it was like a quart low, so I added a quart. And as I was adding it, a ticking sound developed that sounded like it was coming from the transmission. So I'm not really sure what that was. I shut it down, let it sit for a little while, and then cranked it up, and it hasn't come back. It's been perfectly quiet. the only noise I hear from the engine and transmission is the serpentine belt. So hopefully that's nothing to be worried about. But everything looks good on the gauge. Truck's running pretty smooth considering the gas in there is not great. So we're about to go take it on a test drive and make sure it shifts through all the gears. Put some fresh fuel in it too. Alright, we're taking it on the test drive. Went to the gas station, filled all the way up, put some good gas in there. This thing shifts nice. No hard shifting going on. Perfectly smooth. No weird noises. It's working pretty great. Engine's actually running pretty good too. Well, that's it for this project. I went and got it washed. Got some new tires for it. Kind of do a whole makeover on it. Bought some parts. I'm gonna just replace a couple of things. One thing I did notice, couple hundred miles down the road, I've got this transmission component slipping code of P1870. I think it's got something to do with the torque converter. I did not replace the torque converter solenoid or the PWM solenoid. Those are both original from the truck previously. So I might need to replace those and check to make sure that all the valves and everything are not stuck or anything and they're working properly. So I'll do an update video whenever I figure out what's causing that. But other than that, everything's great and it's working pretty good. I put together this list of everything that I had to buy parts wise, and it came out to about $1,300. And I think that's pretty good. I mean, a whole rebuild for $1,300. I mean, yeah, it took me 2 months, but you know, it's my first time doing it. I learned a lot. When I go to build another one, I can probably cut that time down a ton. And could I have taken it to a transmission shop? Yes, absolutely, but I wouldn't have learned how to rebuild one of these, and I'm glad I ended up doing it. Thanks everyone for watching this video, and see you in the next one.